The Boston Celtics are standing at the edge of another seismic shift, and the NBA world is holding its breath. A franchise that just raised the championship banner in June of 2024 now finds itself in the middle of a storm of financial pressure, injury setbacks, and bold front office maneuvers. What seemed unthinkable just a year ago is now being discussed seriously behind the scenes. Boston may not be done shaking the foundations of its roster, and a three-team trade proposal could once again change the direction of the defending champions. The situation became urgent when Jayson Tatum suffered an Achilles injury during the playoff run. That single moment altered not only the Celtics' trajectory on the court, but also the strategic calculations in the front office. Add to that the unforgiving rules of the league's new collective bargaining agreement, and suddenly a team that looked untouchable is being forced to move expensive pieces in order to remain flexible for the future. Kristaps Porzingis was moved, Jrue Holiday was shipped out, Horford and Luke Kornet departed in free agency. Each move carried a message that Boston is not standing still, but the question is what comes next. That brings us to Anfernee Simons, the dynamic guard Boston acquired in the Holiday trade with Portland. On paper, he is a gifted scorer who has averaged more than 20 points per game in consecutive seasons, and he is still only 26 years old. Yet beneath the surface lies a dilemma that could define the Celtics' next chapter. His contract for this upcoming season is worth $27.7 million, and with Boston pressed against the financial restrictions of the new rules, every dollar matters. The whispers are getting louder that Simons might never even suit up for the Celtics in a meaningful game. Enter the idea of a three-team deal involving the Toronto Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets. In this scenario, Boston would send away Simons along with a future second-round pick in 2031. What they would get in return is a younger wing in Ochai Agbaji, the versatile Terance Mann, and a second-round pick in 2030. At first glance, it might appear underwhelming to swap a proven scorer for role players and future draft capital, but the true story lies deeper. This type of move would pull Boston beneath the dreaded first apron line, which is crucial under the new financial landscape. It would also place two movable contracts on the table, giving the Celtics greater optionality as the season unfolds. Mann in particular is intriguing. His contract for the 25-26 season stands at $15.5 million, a number that makes him both affordable and tradable. He has earned a reputation as a player who brings energy, adaptability, and defensive toughness. Agbaji, just 25 years old, remains a developing prospect with untapped potential, and Boston has a track record of extracting value from players who are overlooked elsewhere. These are not blockbuster names, but they represent chess pieces that can be repositioned at the right moment to strengthen a contender. Of course, there is also the possibility that Boston holds on to Simons at least until the trade deadline. If he thrives in green and gold, his offensive firepower could complement Tatum when he returns to full strength. Simons is not known for his defensive presence, but the Celtics have repeatedly shown the ability to build structures that elevate the weaknesses of their players while amplifying their strengths. If Boston believes they can channel his scoring ability into something greater, keeping him could pay dividends in the long run. The fascinating part of this story is not just the names being discussed, but the uncertainty that surrounds every decision. Fans know Boston is never content with complacency, but this moment feels different. With financial pressure looming and the league landscape shifting rapidly, the Celtics are being forced to choose between immediate talent and long-term flexibility. What makes it even more compelling is that neither path signals weakness. Both paths suggest that Boston is preparing for another run at the top, but the route they take could surprise everyone. Every great dynasty has moments of turbulence, and history shows that the Celtics often emerge stronger when tested. The decisions being weighed right now may look risky, but they also hold the potential to secure another decade of contention. The story of the 2024 champions is not finished. It may just be beginning its most dramatic chapter yet. Celtics have already made waves in this offseason, but the latest trade scenario being floated by analysts suggests the story may not be over. The focus now turns to Anfernee Simons, a player Boston acquired on the 7th of July in the deal that sent Jrue Holiday to Portland. While the arrival of Simons initially looked like a creative way to balance finances and add scoring depth, some insiders now believe his time in green could be short-lived, with the Celtics potentially leveraging him into a package that provides more roster balance, financial relief, and long-term upside. The proposed framework from Bleacher Report's Andy Bailey involves a 3-team exchange that would send Simons and a future second-round pick in 2031 out of Boston. In return, the Celtics would receive Ochai Agbaji from Toronto along with a 2030 second-rounder and Terance Mann from Brooklyn. On the surface, this seems like a reshuffling of pieces, but a deeper look reveals strategic reasoning that aligns with Boston's broader goals of staying competitive while reshaping their financial outlook. Simons carries a cap hit of $27.7 million for the 2025 to 2026 season, and with his contract nearing expiration, Boston faces a decision. Hold on to a scoring guard who may not fully fit their long-term needs, or pivot toward younger, more versatile wings who could complement the roster once Jayson Tatum returns from his Achilles injury. By moving Simons now, the Celtics could reduce payroll pressure, slip beneath the first apron, and gain players who align better with their timeline and style of play. Agbaji is particularly intriguing. Drafted in the lottery in 2022, he remains just 25 years old and has shown flashes of being a capable two-way wing. His defensive length and shooting ability fit neatly into Boston's system, which thrives on interchangeable perimeter defenders and reliable spacing. Terance Mann, meanwhile, has built a reputation for his toughness and adaptability, qualities that consistently surface in playoff contexts. Adding both would not only strengthen the wing rotation, but also give the Celtics cost-control contributors, something critical for a team navigating luxury tax dynamics. The financial side cannot be overlooked. If Boston manages to reduce its payroll below the luxury tax threshold of $187.9 million this season, it would not only save significant money, but also reset the repeater tax clock. That reset would be crucial in maintaining flexibility for future seasons, especially when the team inevitably looks to build around a fully healthy Tatum. It is a rare opportunity to address immediate needs while also preserving financial health in the long term. The structure of this potential deal suggests the Celtics are carefully threading the needle between competitiveness and sustainability. With Tatum sidelined, the priority this year is not simply chasing wins, but building an environment where younger players can grow and where the financial books can be stabilized. At the same time, Boston cannot afford to fall too far in the standings, both for organizational culture and for the development of its roster. Players like Agbaji and Mann could strike that balance, contributing immediately while carrying upside for the years ahead. This is what makes the speculation compelling. Rather than standing pat with Simons, whose value might diminish as his contract winds down, Boston could choose to redistribute that value into multiple assets that fit the team's profile more closely. It is not about conceding the present, but about reshaping the roster in a way that maximizes flexibility for the next true championship push. While no trade is guaranteed, the fact that scenarios like this are being openly discussed signals that the Celtics front office is operating with precision. Every move this summer, from trading Porzingis to moving Holiday, has pointed toward an overarching strategy: manage the tax, add younger pieces, and prepare for a seamless transition into the next competitive window. If this proposed deal or a similar version takes shape, Boston could emerge from the offseason not only leaner financially, but also deeper and more versatile on the court. For fans, the message is clear. The Celtics are not finished, and the front office continues to evaluate every option with both the present and future in mind. The possibility of adding a former lottery pick in Agbaji, an experienced playoff contributor in Mann, and financial breathing room could prove to be another step in ensuring that when Tatum returns, Boston is ready to launch another serious run at the title. It almost feels unreal to say this, but for the first time in years the Boston Celtics are staring directly at a hole in their roster that is impossible to ignore. A team that once seemed untouchable in its depth is now looking at its center rotation and realizing that the pieces do not carry the same weight they once did. Just a few months ago the conversation was about how to manage the minutes of Kristaps, Porzingis, Al Horford, and Luke Kornet. Today the front line looks drastically different with Neemias Queta, Luka Garza, and Xavier Tillman Sr. holding the responsibility. The shift is dramatic, and for a franchise that prides itself on having no weak spots, this is where intrigue begins to rise. What makes this situation fascinating is that Boston suddenly becomes a player in a very specific market, the kind that is usually overlooked by championship contenders. While other teams might be searching for blockbuster names, the Celtics are in the rare position of hunting for a piece that is cheap, undervalued, and available. That is where the name Oso Ighodaro enters the discussion. On the surface, it may not sound like a move that shakes the league, but behind the scenes the implications could be far greater than they appear. Oso Ighodaro is only 23 years old, stands 2 meters and 13 centimeters tall, and comes from a respected college program at Marquette. His rookie year in Phoenix was not the type of season that would land headlines, yet his flashes were undeniable. In 61 games, he averaged just over 4 points, nearly 4 rebounds, and showed vision uncommon for a young big. His ability to connect plays, finish near the rim, and rely on a crafty floater makes him a unique piece, especially for a team that values versatility as much as Boston. The Suns, however, are crowded at the center position. With Mark Williams and Kaman Maluak recently brought in, the pathway for Ighodaro to develop in Phoenix is limited. That creates a rare opening for another franchise to swoop in, and according to Sam Vecenie of The Athletic, Boston should be at the top of that list. The Celtics do not need a star. They need reliability, energy, and upside that does not cost them their future flexibility. Ighodaro checks all of those boxes. The most intriguing element is the price. Vecenie speculated that 2 second-round picks could be enough to acquire him. For a team like Boston that has its eyes on a championship window and a roster already filled with elite talent, that kind of investment is minimal. Imagine trading future draft assets that may never see the floor in green and white in exchange for a player who could immediately provide relief minutes, keep the defense intact, and grow alongside the system. This is where curiosity deepens. Could Oso Ighodaro actually become more than just a stopgap? Every once in a while, the league produces a story where a player moves from the shadows of a crowded depth chart into the spotlight of a contender and blossoms. The Celtics have a history of identifying undervalued talent and maximizing it. If Ighodaro were to land in Boston, surrounded by some of the best development infrastructure in the league, there is a real chance his trajectory would accelerate. For fans, the hope lies in the idea that this is not about chasing another superstar or mortgaging the future. It is about solving a problem with precision, finding the right fit instead of the biggest name. The Celtics are already stacked with their core, and what they need is someone who can quietly but effectively stabilize the weakest link in the chain. Ighodaro represents exactly that, a player who might not dominate the headlines today, but who could end up being one of those hidden gems that later feels obvious in hindsight. The story of Boston has always been about finding ways to stay ahead of the curve. Now, with the center rotation thinner than anyone expected, the search for answers is underway. Oso Ighodaro may not be the answer that screams for attention, but sometimes the most powerful moves are the ones that begin as whispers. And right now, those whispers around Boston are growing louder, hinting at a future where the Celtics once again turn a potential weakness into unexpected strength.